Hello, my friends. Long ago, before I had a YouTube channel, I had a website, and it had to do with non-dualism and Zenish type explorations. Well, I've had a thought to sort of reincarnate that website here on this channel by reading some of the posts. It was a blog, and making them into videos. Today, I'm going to try one out on you, and please tell me if you like it, if you get anything out of it, if you find value in it. If you do, I'm going to keep going with it. I want to say hundreds of these, and they range all over the place, all sorts of explorations. And I simply would read them and post them, and hopefully you'd get something out of them. All right, let me know what you think. This one is called The Coyote. Years ago, Rebecca and I lived in a place called Sweetwater Vale. And I would spend a lot of time wandering the forests. In my wanders, I would meet a lot of the creatures who make their homes there. There was the big buck with the wicked antlers, the red-colored turkey, the squirrel who was missing half of his tail, and the barred owl who made his home in the pine forest. These creatures, they gave gifts to Rebecca and I in so many ways. We enjoyed watching them play and eat and fly. Rebecca captured a lot of them with her photography. We observed them as they moved from season to season. But this is a story about a time when I met one of the most elusive of the forest creatures. I met a very special coyote. For those of you not familiar with the wildlife of the United States, coyotes are medium-sized canines. They're smaller than wolves, but bigger than foxes. Though they can adapt to urban environments, they're most populous in the wilder areas, and they're very wary of humans. Rebecca and I, we often hear their haunting cries late at night, echoing out of the still and darkened woods. But during our 6 years back there at Sweetwater Vale, I had never actually seen one when I was wandering the forests. As you might imagine, I felt pretty lucky when I saw the coyote on this particular hike. He was about 400 meters distant, lying in the middle of a huge field and basking in the sun. He looked happy. From my hiding place in the trees, I watched him roll about in the short spring grass. He'd nap for a half hour or so, then roll about again, playing with the grasses. Then he'd go back to sleep. After I had watched for some time, I thought I'd try to get a little closer. So I started moving quietly from tree to tree. To my amazement, I made it all the way to the edge of the field without him seeing me. Delighted with my luck, I got down on my belly and started to cross the field, inching along as I tried to close the last 100 meters. There was a slight rise in the terrain between me and the coyote, and since the wind was blowing favorably, and he wasn't alerted to my scent, I managed to get about 20 feet away before he saw me. I had never been so close to a coyote. I was ecstatic. His eyes looked straight into mine, and I was transfixed by his beauty. Then he got up, and my heart almost stopped. The coyote was paralyzed. Both of his back legs were draped uselessly behind him, and as he began to run, he had to pull himself along with his forelegs. Now, Rebecca and I have more injured animal stories than we can count. Animals in need, and seems like humans too, they often cross our path, and we always do our best to help them out. As I watched the coyote flee, I did what came instinctively. I gave chase, intending to see if there was any way I could help. Even with only 2 legs, the coyote was fast. I sprinted to head him off, and he darted about a little, seeing if he could find an escape. But when it was clear that I wasn't going to give up, he just lay down in the leaves. It was a very surreal moment for me. I sat down on a rock a few feet away, and we regarded each other for a very long time. From where I was, I tried to ascertain the nature of his wounds, but he was pretty uncomfortable with me getting any closer, so I really couldn't tell what had happened. Despite being paralyzed, his eyes were very sharp and clear, and he wasn't skinny. He looked well fed. It's difficult to know what to do in situations like this. A part of us can feel that if a creature is injured this badly, the best thing that we can do is to kill it. It reminded me of a scene from Peter Matthiesen's book, The Snow Leopard, in which he sees a young girl in Nepal who's paralyzed from the waist down. She, like the coyote, moved using only her arms, and since she lived in a remote hill village, she would probably never experience the benefit of a wheelchair or any other modern mechanical aid. Peter reported wanting to give her something, a new life, but further noted that she gazes up, clear-eyed, without resentment. We have this idea that life, it can always be better. And that idea creates a scale with which we tend to judge both ourselves and the people around us. Living by this philosophy, we feel pity for the poor and envy toward the rich. But in truth, we know nothing about the suffering of others. We're too immersed in our own judgments. Was Peter's little girl suffering? Was the coyote suffering? Is the poor person suffering? What about the rich? With our judgments in place, we dole out our compassion and we dole out our contempt, and all the while digging ourselves deeper into a trench of judgment. This is not to say that we shouldn't reach out and help those whom we judge to be in need, but let us not pretend that we're making their lives better in the process. We may be setting into motion great happiness or great misery. When we give without assumptions, something special happens. We discover that we're not giving in order to appease our own judgments, but that we're giving simply to give. This is true compassion, and giving in this way is always a joyful thing. Nothing taints the purity of our giving. This is most important when it comes to our relationship with ourselves. In our constant striving to make our lives better, we rarely stop to appreciate where we are. This simple skill is lost to us, and in this way we guarantee that no matter what we achieve, we will always be filled with the desire for more. It's fine to strive for more, but if we do it believing that our life will be better once we get what we want, then we'll be trapping ourselves in an endless cycle. Let us see clearly enough to recognize that our joy is right here, right now, no matter what our circumstances. We may have just gotten a wonderful new job, just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, or be sitting down to a bowl of oatmeal in the morning. In each of these moments, we are free to experience life or to push life aside in a constant effort to make things better. As for the coyote, I tossed him the dried meat I had brought along from my hike, which he eyed suspiciously. Then I quietly got up and I left. A few days later, I went back to the same place, and he was gone. Perhaps he was slowly dying in a hollow log, or perhaps he'd already been killed by dogs or humans or another predator. But he might just as well have been lounging in a sunny field, rolling over so the sun could warm his belly, playing with the grass. I don't expect that I'll ever meet him again. But in the few moments we had together, I was in the presence of a great and beautiful teacher.